Good morning. Welcome to Kabbalah Café. Bruchim Habayim. Welcome everybody to this Friday morning, 9:30 to 10, the special shiur on the Parsha of the week according to the teachings of Chassidut. So to make sure that everybody is in. Yofi. Parshat Beha'Alotacha is a parasha מאוד מאוד עמוסה. Parshat Beha'Alotacha is a very full and packed parsha with many interesting mitzvot and many subjects. And so let's start with the beginning of the parsha, and if we have time, then we'll move on to some other subjects as well. Am Yisrael is very colorful. Am Yisrael has people of all backgrounds and of all walks of life, and we all make an effort to be ba'achdut, to be in unity. And in order to understand how we can be with true unity, we have to first understand about Am Yisrael a little better. You see, in the beginning of this week's parsha, Hashem tells Moshe to tell Aaron to light the menorah. The menorah, the original candelabra in the Beit HaMikdash, had 7 branches. Unlike the menorah, the Chanukiah that we have today, that we light on Chanukah, which has 8 branches plus the middle branch, the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash and the Mishkan had 7 branches, 1 in the middle, 6 on each side. And in Chassidut, the Alter Rebbe explains that every person is compared to a candle. Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The candle of Hashem is the soul of man. So every person's soul is like a candle. And so therefore, when we have 7 different branches to the menorah, so that's like 7 different types of neshamot. Be'emet yesh bli gvul sugim shel neshamot. Sugim b'toch sugim. Aval be'ofen klali yeshnam sheva sugim. Generally speaking, there are 7 types of neshamot, of souls. So when we know the concept of souls the way it is, in the number of 7, the 7 sfirot, the 7 levels of emotion, so according to that we can try to draw an analogy to the way that it is in our neshamot, the neshama of every person. Because in the menorah itself, we have a contrast of 2 things. On one hand, there are 7 branches. On the other hand, unlike almost any other utensil in the Beit HaMikdash, it had to be miksha achat, 1 unit. Moshe didn't understand. How is it possible to make from 1 unit, to make from one big chunk of gold, to make a beautiful candelabra? Usually you would take branches, screw them in or attach them, but to make it all out of 1 unit, that's very difficult. It's almost impossible. So Hashem said, don't worry, I'll show you. He took a big chunk of gold, put it into the fire, and miraculously it came, the menorah the branches came out, and it was a beautiful candelabra. So on one hand we have the branches, on the other hand we have 1 unit. That's like the Achdut of Am Yisrael. On one hand we're colorful, on the other hand we're 1 unit. I remember around 25 or 30 years ago when I came to Israel to visit, I met someone, an Israeli. We just met in the street or whatever, on the bus, I don't remember where it was. And he asked me an interesting question. I think this question would be asked more in Israel, but especially the word that he used. He used a word, I think he made it up. He called it shivtiyut. He said, why is there shivtiyut in Am Yisrael? Shivtiyut is like the word shevet. Shevet is a tribe. And so, how come we have different tribes in Am Yisrael? For example, you have the 12 tribes, 12 sons of Yaakov. You have Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael. And so many different types and brands and so to speak, tribes, quote unquote. Isn't that contrary to Achdut? Isn't that contrary to the idea of unity, oneness? Shouldn't we all be literally together as one, without having the different branches, without having the different tribes? And so I explained to him, and that's what we're going to learn about today. I explained to him that, I tried to at least, that the concept that Am Yisrael is so colorful, the concept that Am Yisrael is that is what makes us beautiful. In other words, it's not a contradiction to be one unit and to have 7 branches. On the contrary, each one complements the other. And that's what we're going to try to explain today. I just want to, someone is trying to log. Okay, thank you for waiting for a moment. Someone asked me to invite them, now that we're back. Someone asked me to send them an invite on Zoom, so I just did that. And hopefully soon I'm going to let them in. Okay, so in summary of our question, we just asked, how is it possible to have both be one unit, miksha achat, and on the other hand, to be different branches? Can everybody hear me now? Sorry that I had to let someone in on Zoom, but please tell me if you can hear me now. Okay, I think now, hopefully, please just send me a quick message. Okay, great, loud and clear. Thank you very much, Tuvia. Thank you. Okay, so in summary, we asked, how is it possible to have a balance of the two? On one hand, miksha achat, one unit, and on the other hand, to have 7 branches. And so, when it comes to the branches of the menorah, each one of these 7 branches correspond to another type of Jew. And each one of these 7 branches correspond to another midah, another level of emotion that we have, also by Hashem, in the higher sfirot, in the higher levels. So let's go one at a time. The first level is chesed. Chesed is kindness. That's the first level of emotion. Chesed, the midah of chesed, is expressed through love. For example, that is really the derech of Chassidus, that Chassidus embraces people instead of taking the other approach that we're going to see in a moment of Gevura. That is the way of Chesed, and that's what the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says in the Zohar, Anan b'chavivuta talya milta. We are dependent on love, chavivut, on love, on embracing. That is like the kind of Jew who excels in chesed, excels in love and emotion and embracing to another person. There are some neshamos that are like that. Then there are some neshamos that are on the level of Gevura. Gevura is expressed in fear and in awe. That is really the way of Musar, as we learned a couple of days ago, which expresses mainly the fear of Hashem. And this these are the people that may take upon themselves all kinds of physical affliction. But, and also, by the way, that's where the word charedim come from. Charedi, you might have heard of. Charedim is someone who, it usually means someone who is observant. Someone who is very mahadran observant. But the word chared comes from the word of yirah, fear. Someone who is so fearful of Hashem that he does every single thing possible. He wants to make sure that he does it properly. He wants to make sure that he fulfills the mitzvahs properly. But he does it in a way of fear. And there are some people that's their focus, chared. They're chared l'dvar Hashem. The next level is Tiferet. Tiferet, there are some Jews that are on the level, they are an example of what it means to be Tiferet. Tiferet means beauty. What does that mean? That is a healthy balance between the Chesed and the Gvura, which comes through Torah. Which usually, this is the derech of Talmidei Chachamim Torah scholars, which their day runs around learning Torah. They have a healthy balance between Chesed and Gevura, as the Medrash says. The Gemara says, Tiferet zu matan Torah. That refers to the giving of the Torah. Then comes number 4. That's Netzach. Netzach is from the word of Nitzachon, victorious. This is the level of a Baal Tshuva. A Baal Tshuva who has come from a level of milchamot, internal wars, and sometimes even more wrestling and sometimes with themselves, sometimes with family members, not literally, of course. But I was just talking to someone the other day about, it was almost 2 hours, about the tremendous challenges that they have, unfortunately, with close family members, because of their leaps and bounds that they've been making in way of Torah and mitzvot. And we were discussing the subject of, on one hand, continuing in your path, on the other hand, trying to balance and to really be embracing to your family members and your close friends, especially close family members. Number 5 is Hod. Hod is the 5th midah, the 5th level of emotion, and that means being thankful to Hashem, which is simplicity. These are regular people, simple people, as we talked at great length last week about the Baal Shem Tov, and these are the people that the Baal Shem Tov loves, people that have the deepest relationship with Hashem. Then number 6 is Yesod. Yesod means found. By the way, Hod means beauty, an inner level of beauty. Yesod, number 6, is foundation. Tzaddik Yesod Olam. This is a service of Hashem, where our connection with the tzaddik. As we see often, there are some Hasidim that the tzaddik is almost their exclusive, deep connection with Hashem. Everyone has a connection with Hashem, as we learned a few weeks ago in chapter 2 in the Tanya. But nevertheless, there are some people that say, tzaddik be'emunato yichyeh, al tikre yichyeh yechayeh. That let the tzaddik we do all the basics, and the tzaddik will do all of the learning of Kabbalah, and he'll do all the spiritual accomplishments that he needs to do, and that's up to him. That's his challenge. In Chabad, we say tzaddik be'emunato yichyeh. We connect to the tzaddik, but yichyeh, each and every one of us has to also live, not only dependent on the life of the spiritual life of the tzaddik, but we also have to live, we also have to connect, we also have to learn Chassidus. And finally, number 7 is Malchut. Malchut means accepting upon ourselves the yoke of Hashem. This is the basic observance of Shulchan Aruch in the most practical way. And this is why we have classes in halacha and Jewish law. This is why we this is why we ask a Rav for guidance in halacha, because it's very important that as holy as we become in learning Torah and Gemara and Kabbalah and Chassidus and Tanya, we always have to connect, we always have to stick to the basics. And that is Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim. So generally speaking, these are 7 levels which correspond to the 7 branches of the menorah that were in the Beit HaMikdash that we read about in this parsha. So as we started to ask, how does this coincide with Achdut? On one hand, you tell me that each and every one of us has its own path, has its own source of the neshama, has its own way in serving Hashem. On the other hand, we say that the menorah was a miksha achad. So this is what the Torah explains to us. The Torah explains to us that it's not a contradiction. On one hand, Am Yisrael is really one unit. Or as we said a couple of months ago when we learned the Tanya chapter 32, that we are all one embodiment. There are some of us that are like the head or the eyes, and some of us are like the stomach and the body, and some of us are like the legs and even the toes. But we're all one unit. We're all one. The way we learned in chapter 2 in Tanya, that they were all like one, like there might be different children in the family, but they all come from the source that's in the mind of the parents. And the way they are in the mind of the parents, it's impossible to differentiate between them. Nevertheless, when the children are born, for example, then the greatest pleasure for parents is that the children should get along. That's the greatest thing that a parent can ask for. And so you can have each child is different. No 2 children are alike. Just like in a classroom. If there's a teacher that thinks he's going to do one size fits all, oy vavoy, as they say in Hebrew, that would be a terrible way to teach, and it's almost guaranteed that the class would not be successful. So therefore, the teacher has a challenge to be able to teach in a way that on one hand it's a message, it's one teacher, one message, but on the other hand it should be able to be accepted by the different colors, by the different backgrounds, by the different types of people, that they should be able to also receive each one on their own level. Chanoch lanar al pi darko. Educate a child or any student according to his own way. Now, this is why in the menorah there was oil. We needed to use oil. And the oil was created katit la ma'or. In order to squeeze out the oil, especially the pure oil, which does not have all the little pieces inside, you have to crush the olive in order to bring out the oil la ma'or, for the luminary, in order to be able to truly bring out the best in the of the olive in the oil. So too is in Avodat Hashem. Just like the menorah corresponds to every single Jew and our connection with Hashem, so too in the service of Hashem we also need to bring out this oil. So in each one of the seven ways you need to have the katit, self-nullification. Now there are some people who are professionals in katit, in crushing. The only difference is they crush others. That's the problem. When we say that we need to be bitul, selflessness for Hashem, that's called crushing, quote unquote, crushing ourselves. We ourselves have to be small in our own eyes. We're not allowed to, God forbid, we're not allowed to crush others. We have to be small in our own eyes. That's like it says towards the end of the parsha, one of the most powerful verses in the entire Torah. V'ha'ish Moshe anav me'od mikol ha'adam asher al pnei ha'adama. And the man Moshe, the individual Moshe Rabbeinu, was the most humble person of all people of the world, of history. Most humble person. That's like the famous joke that was before the time of the Baal Shem Tov, that they had all these Torah scholars, and it was Simchat Torah. And Simchat Torah, we have the hakafot, where we go, we circle we dance around the Torah, we dance around the bima and the shul. And so the first hakafa is we honor the Kohanim. We have a mitzvah, the Kiddashto, we have to sanctify the Kohanim. So they said, let's invite all of the Kohanim to come up. And you had a few Kohanim came up. Then all the Leviim for the second Hakafa, they had the Leviim. And for the third Hakafa, they had all of the humble people. And you had a long line all the way out the door until King George Street, with all the humble people that lined up to receive an honor of going around the Torah. So come on. If you say that you're humble, this is not don't announce it too loud. Don't make sure that not everybody knows about it. That don't publicize it on social media. Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was humble, that was true humility. What does it mean to be humble? If you were to ask Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, were you the leader of Am Yisrael? Did you take Am Yisrael out of Mitzrayim? Were you the Redeemer, the Mashiach of that generation? The Goel, the Redeemer? If he would say, no way, I'm nothing. I'm a piece of garbage. Me? You think I would take Am Yisrael? Just look at me. How could I ever take 3 million people out of Mitzrayim when even a servant could not run away from Mitzrayim? If he would say that, he would be a straight out liar. Because the truth is that he did. So what does it mean that Moshe was the most humble person of all Asher al Pnei Adama, on the entire world? What it means is that he recognized his own talents. He recognized the gifts that Hashem gave him. But, what did he say? Or what would he say if someone would ask him, Moshe Rabbeinu, with all due respect, did you lead Am Yisrael out of Mitzrayim? He probably would have said, yes, I did. Because Hashem gave me this gift. But if Hashem would have given this gift to someone else, he would have been much more successful and would have accomplished on a much greater level than I did. That's called looking at himself with humility. Not denying the gifts that Hashem gave him. Rather, recognizing them and using them for to carry out Hashem's mission in this world that Hashem placed upon him. And so therefore, when it comes to katit la'ma'or, to crush, in order to bring out the best, bring out the light, a person has to crush them, a person has to feel bitul. If we say, I am the big candle, I am the big branch of the candelabra in the Mishkan and in the Beit HaMikdash, then that doesn't really go with miksha. That doesn't go hand in hand with being one unit. If we truly are one unit, and we feel ourselves as nothingness, not as nothing, as nothingness, as if we're nothing, recognizing that the gifts that we have, but not taking the credit for them, because we're not the ones that earned it. Hashem gave us gifts. We have a job to do in this world. We have to use the gifts that Hashem gave us. So if we recognize that they're not our gifts, then we will blend into the other Jew so easily, so beautifully, that it will be a beautiful candelabra will shine. With all the different branches, the Chesed, the Gvura, the Tiferet, the Netzach, Hod, Yisod, and Malchut, all of the above will shine beautifully. But if we're going to be, God forbid, egotists, and to show only how I am the best, and katit, to push others down, God forbid, then that is definitely not a good recipe for balancing the miksha, the one unit, and the achdut, the beauty, the colorfulness, or as I started saying at the beginning of the class, the shivtiyut, the being the tribes, different tribes, Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael, whatever it is. That's what's beautiful about Am Yisrael. I just want to finish off with one beautiful story, and that's with Yehuda Avner, who used to live over here, ambassador. He wrote the famous book called The Five Prime Ministers. I was at the event when he introduced the book, and he said that he was once by the Rebbe in a private audience, and he spoke about Prime Minister Begin of blessed memory's trip. It was soon after he visited the Rebbe, and after he went to Washington, he sent Ambassador Avner to come back and report to the Rebbe. And so he spoke about all these different subjects, and amongst the subjects, he asked the Rebbe, "What is a Rebbe?" That's a pretty bold question to ask the Rebbe. What is a Rebbe? But the Rebbe answered him as follows: every person is a flame, like we started this class. Ner Hashem, Nishmat Adam. The candle of Hashem is the neshama, is the soul of man. And every person has a job to light this candle, to be a light, to be a luminary to the world, and to serve your mission, why Hashem put you in this world. And the job of the Rebbe is to help a person, that the person should light the neshama, to light everyone's neshama. And they continued to talk, and then as he got up to leave, he went to the door. The Rebbe accompanied him to the door. As he's holding the handle, he turns around to the Rebbe and he says, "Rebbe, did the Rebbe light my candle?" And the Rebbe smiled and said, "No, I gave you the match." In other words, there has to be a balance between the avodat Hashem that we need to do, the service of Hashem, that we have to light our candle, we have to make our effort. But on the other hand, we need the help of the tzaddikim, we need the help of Hashem, the siyata d'shmaya, the help of Hashem and divine providence to be able to guide us in the right way. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great Shabbat. I really hope you'll be able to join us. Of course, we're going to be outside this once again this Shabbos. And so tonight we're going to daven mincha at 7:20. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, nice and fresh, early in the morning. It's going to be a hot day, so it's really important to come on time, to come early, this so we can finish, relatively speaking, early. And of course, tomorrow afternoon at 7:05, we'll have mincha. I look forward to seeing everyone. If you have to stay home, of course, we respect that. We'll connect from a distance because we're always connected. Have a great Shabbat. All the best.